Hello, my gorgeous makeup loving friends. How's it going? Welcome back. Or if you're new here, hi, my name is Teresa. A big thank you to the lovely Heather who helped me get my paws on PLouise's Money Shot, which sounds like a euphemism. Anyways, it's a friggin' huge palette. There's essentially two palettes in one, and it's all green toned. Yeah, it's my kind of jam. I like greens, but this is just a very simple video, as is my want. It is a tutorial and a review, and hopefully, if I get the time, some swatches. So if that sounds like something you are interested in, then do please keep on watching. I'm very aware that I have a very fat and broad face, but I think that even my face isn't going to be big enough to manage to swatch all of this. Yeah, the Money Shot palette, which we all know what the Money Shot means. But yeah, I think I'm gonna struggle with this, but I'm gonna try and swatch at least the first part of the palette. So let's get on into it. Believe it or not, I've managed to swatch the whole first part of the palette. So I actually think I might get the full palette onto my face and look like some sort of a terrible, you know, picture by numbers sort of a thing. Let's try the second half. I'm shocked I managed to get the whole thing onto my face. I think though, once you see them all together, you can see there's quite a few shades. These two, for example, that are really similar. A lot of the browns are coming off really, really similar. And a lot of the greens here. I mean, I'm just saying that as you're looking there and you see it all together, a lot of them are duping themselves. Like, this is a massive palette. There's like 42 shades in it. 42 shades, which massive. And I think you can just see, just even by looking at these ridiculous swatches, that could have easily been pared down to like 24 or something like that. But my gorgeous friends, that is the whole palette swatched on my big hamster face. If I had puffed out my cheeks, I would have had even more room. But it does look like I'm growing a little bit of like a mutton chops sort of a situation going on over here. Can I carry that off? I feel like I can. Maybe the way I've swatched makes it look like I have actual jaw definition. Anyways, if you want to see what I did with this palette and what I think of it overall, then that is the next part of the video. Do please keep on watching. I feel like I need to preface this by saying it has been forever since I did makeup, and I think I might have forgotten how to do it. What's a brush again? How do we do the thing? Anyways, it's okay. It'll all be fine. It all washes off. It'll be grand. So one of the things I do actually like about this palette is that I can remove this bit. Now I wish you could remove both sections of the palette just to make it a bit easier for me to grab, but hey ho, I'm already starting whinging early on in the video. It's a good sign. I'm taking this Morphe M562 and I'm going into the shade Production. Now I will say I don't feel like this is the most pigmented shade that there is, and it does come up a little bit powdery, a little bit kick-uppy, and I do kind of have to pack it on. So for me, that isn't spectacular. Like, it's not a deal breaker, but it's not amazeballs when you consider that this palette alone is €57.95. They were doing the bundle where you could get this and the other two together, like the stack 'em ups, for €54.95. But yeah, it's a funny one. Don't understand their pricing. Like, you can build it up and get it to the pigmentation level that you want it to get to. So like, I'm not angry at it, but I've had so many like, not negative experiences, but like questionable experiences with PLouise that I'm like, either the palette is absolutely amazing, like the stack 'em ups have amazing formula, or they are absolute shite. The Worldie and the Queen Conquer, I don't know if it was just that the formula didn't work for me or what the story was, or if I got a bad batch, but they were dreadful. So I'm always like a bit apprehensive trying PLouise, because I'm like, ugh, what am I going to get? Is it going to be good, or is it going to be absolute like garbage. Now another Morphe M562, and this time we're going into high definition. High definition, how are you? I will say the two of these tones are quite similar to each other. So when you do put, like, it's helpful in the sense that if you're worried about blending out or you feel a bit nervous about it, they're so kind of similar to each other that you have those blendy outy shades. Probably too many. I do feel like this could have been edited down significantly, like at least 15 shades could have been taken out that just were a bit overly repetitive in my opinion, because even if you see it on the eye there, the two of them, it's almost indistinguishable in my opinion. But it's the same sort of kind of issue with this here in that it isn't initially very pigmented, so you do have to kind of go backwards and forwards and kind of know how to pack on that colour. So I don't think it's necessarily the most like user friendly, although maybe if you're starting off you might be very nervous about colour, so may not want it being like wabam on your face straight away. But yeah, I just can't get over how similar the two of these colours actually are when you see them on the eyelid. Like, I find it very difficult to distinguish between these two. And now another Morphe M562, because I'm just making a lot of work for myself of like brushes to clean. Good luck, future Teresa. And we're going into Polaroid. Now, I will say that this shade is where we start to see a really nice difference here. We get like lots and lots of colour here, very pigmented, and you can see the tones are quite different. It's quite an interesting shade. Like, I like this one. I love those sort of grungy poopy greens. I mean, to be fair, I don't think there's a green that I've met that I haven't been like, I like you, get into my arsenal. Which, by the way, sounds like some sort of a really creepy euphemism. But you can see there, like, that's kind of turning up no problem on the eyelid. I'm not having to work at it very much, which is what I like, because if you didn't know me, lads, I'm a lazy bee. I am also a very basic bee and feel the need to put like highlight on the inner corner of my eye all the time. Can't help it. I'm taking this Zoeva 228 and I'm going into the shade Backstage. And I just kind of want to put it here and work it that way up. Not really blending, just kind of smashing it on there, because that's for future Teresa to work out. But I think there's a really nice kind of a shimmer to that, I gotta say. I like the formula on this. I like the way that this is performing. Okay, like, I mean, there's definitely like some redundant shades in this palette, not gonna lie, but there's some good ones as well. Now I'm taking another Morphe M562 and I'm going into the shade Director. Now, for me, this is where it kind of went a little bit iffy, because it, on the other eye anyways, ended up being quite patchy and difficult to work with. I'm hoping it mightn't turn up like that on this eye. Sometimes I have like slightly different eyelid chemistry and it'll work out really well on one eyelid but not so much on the other. Yeah, you have to kind of be relatively light-handed with this because it's difficult to blend. If you put down the colour, it does just kind of go bleh and splodges there, as you can kind of see, but it's definitely blending a lot better than it did on the other eyelid, because I was panicking, lads. I was like, oh god, this is my life now. I'm going to spend the rest of my years just attempting to blend this out. Because obviously I do that rather than fucking wash it off and start from beginning. But yeah, it is a little bit better than it was on the other eyelid, thankfully. So I think a lot of the time, well, not a lot of the times, but sometimes these things can be down to your eyelid chemistry and, you know, your own biology and whether or not something will work with your skin type. So I think that's something to kind of keep in mind. I will say it's a little bit harsh here, but I'm hoping if I maybe like later on take some translucent powder and kind of like attempt to buff it out, that'll be future Teresa's problem and she can figure that out. Good luck, future Teresa. I'm taking this Blend Bunny B1 and I'm going into the shade Riches. I will say that one of the things that kind of bugs me a little bit about PLouise is the constant kind of reference to money. Like, I get that for some people it's like a really big deal and they love showing off, but I'm kind of like, a little bit tone deaf when, you know, there's people having to go to food banks and stuff. So I don't know, but that's just me getting a bit unnecessary and I'm thinking about it too much, but it's not the sort of energy I would personally like to put out into the world, but that's just me. So yeah, I'm just kind of taking that shade Riches and just popping it along the crease and working it out just to kind of give a little bit more depth. Yeah, that doesn't sound weird and creepy at all. And then just in an attempt to add back in that colour that has been diffused, I'm going back in with my Morphe M562 and going back into the shade Production. And I'm again just kind of popping that where I'd originally put it, just to kind of get that colour back in there, because otherwise that green Riches will kind of like dominate and it just gets a bit much, you know, as if having Riches would be too much. Hashtag can't relate. And then the Morphe M562, and I'm going into high definition. I'm literally just adding in the colour that has been like somewhat diffused back in again. Like nothing majorly mind-blowing or difficult. And in case you're wondering about the liner that I used, I'm sure you'll be absolutely shocked to know that it's the Artitude palette. I'll link it down below along with a code to give you some money off. It's just become my go-to palette, you know, for liners. And then a Morphe M562, I'm going into the shade Polaroid. I really do like this shade because it's quite grungy and like, yeah, I think this might be one of my favourite shades from at least this section of the palette. I quite like it. So I did cut the crease, and this is where it gets a little bit tedious because, again, like I said, you can't actually remove this part. Like, I kind of wish you could because it would just make things so much easier, unless you can and I just haven't figured it out. No, you definitely can't remove it. It's very annoying. Anyways, I am using this Zoeva 228 and I'm going into the shade Your Moment. And can I take a moment to just kind of like reflect for those of us who have hooded lined eyelids, how annoying is it that we are really like constricted on the sort of like eyelid shapes and stuff that we can do, or the fact that I can see like creases where the shadow goes in. It's very upsetting. Now this isn't like super pigmented, and at times I actually had to kind of go on with my finger instead, which wasn't it for me, you know. I'm a bit not wildly impressed with this segment. Again, it's not the absolute best. Like, I think there are definitely better formulas out there for much cheaper, and again could have been edited down a lot more. And now another Zoeva 228 because they are love, they are life, they are everything, and I'm going into the shade Strike a Pose, which, you know, Madonna, Vogue, and just kind of popping that on there. And again, you kind of see this is so similar or so close to the other shade that you're like, was this 100% necessary? And I think the way they kind of got around this was those two shades are separated by a shimmer, which almost tricks you into not seeing how incredibly close they are in terms of the tone, and indeed how they actually perform on the eyelid. So I think that's like, again, another indicator that this just wasn't edited appropriately. I'm now taking a blank canvas E10 and I'm going into the shade The Big Screen, which is the shade, by the way, that separates those two colours that are incredibly similar on the eyelid. Now, full disclosure, does this turn up on the eyelid that well? No. I wanted to show you how this performs with kind of a floofy brush, and hey, guess what? You don't get any pigment. Like, nothing is really turning up there. You're getting like a whisper, a soupçon of a potential shimmer. You know, that one day this shade will grow up and be a shimmer. The only way that this works is if you get your gross, disgusting finger and shove it on like that. And then when you do, it's actually really quite nice. It reminds me a bit of a shimmer that's in the Give Me Glow Cosmetics Juicy Olive palette, which I was like, okay, we can screw with that. And then again, I can go back in with my blank canvas E10 and then I can kind of disperse it out a little bit more, and it functions a lot better in that sense. And again, the basic bee in me is like, inner corner, let's do it. I'm using that Zoeva 228 again, and I'm going into the shade Hard Cash, which, okay, better than soft cash, I guess. Don't worry, I know what hard cash means. I'm just being silly. And again, just popping that just in there. And I will say, this looks so similar to the other shade on the other palette. And again, part of how they're kind of getting away with that is they've separated it into 2 separate sections of the palette. And I'm just like, PLouise, my friend, not that we're friends, but you are somewhat duping yourself. This was not necessary. And for that to come from somebody who's like the queen of green, who fucking loves green, you know that there's some truth in that. I'm now taking a Cash Beauty brush and I'm going to the shade Onset. And I remember that the Worldy palette had a shade that was like this, and it was just impossible to blend. It was so difficult. It was like super patchy and just blah. This is okay. Like, this is definitely an improvement. So I wonder if she kind of took that and like improved upon the formula. Like, it's a lot better than it was. Is it gonna be like my top formula or my most favorite thing ever? No, I think, again, like I said before, I think there's much better brands out there that do a better job for less money. And finally, I'm taking a Zoeva 225 and I'm going into the shade Hollywood, which is quite a pine toned green, very kind of blue leaning. It's almost like there's a navy in it. It's quite interesting. And I'm just popping that there and just really quite gently blending and kind of smoking that out a little bit more. And I think that does give you a nice level of depth. But I mean, even the shade Hollywood is so similar to another shade in the palette that is like directly above it. And I'm like, you could have made this a 30-pound palette. I'm kind of interested to see how this might perform against, say, the Beauty Bay Earthy palette. I'm sure somebody has done that. I'd like to see it because I'm a nosy bee. I still haven't used my Beauty Bay Earthy palette. Does anyone want to see me do that? Who knows? Because like I said, I've been struggling a bit with like doing makeup and just generally doing things in a general. But like, I mean, we're pretty much there. That's it. I'm going to clean this up, put on the liner. We're going to come back and we're going to see what it is that I think of this massive palette. Like, Jesus, PLouise, are you compensating for something? Possibly. Are you surprised there's graphic liner, which isn't done very well, and some gems? Such a surprise. So new, so different, so innovative, Teresa. Anyways, the whole look is done and I'm going to zoom you in now so you can see what the finished eye look looks like. So yeah, this is it. I took the liner and I did blend it out with some concealer because I felt like doing that. Yeah, I mean, it's green. You know how I feel about green. And for good measure, I just added in 2 little gems. Somehow didn't manage to go overboard. So unusual for me. I do like the tones of this. I do think it like has worked out pretty darn well. So that leads us to the all-important review. I don't know why I'm doing this. Crab hands. Anyways, it's the Money Shot. It is absolutely massive. It might be bigger than PLouise's ego. Who knows? Anyways, I think in general the quality is a lot better than what I had with the Watch the Queen Conquer and with the Worldy. I think this is an improvement. I still feel like there are a few shades that don't perform as well as they could. This could have been edited down drastically. Like, I mean, it could have been half this size. I also... And I know this is like, I've bought this so I knew what I was getting into, but I feel like packaging like this, totally unnecessary. You pay a lot extra when you're doing this sort of thing. I think a lot more people would take it better if the packaging was streamlined, you know? A lot of the shades are super similar to each other. Could have been edited down. In all though, I do quite like it. I mean, if you take these 2 shades, yeah, believe it or not, they are 2 different shades. One is Filmmaker and one is Hollywood. I mean, they're exactly the same, and a lot of these do perform very similarly. There's dupes across each of the palettes, and I feel like it just wasn't executed as well as it could have been. And for that price, you're kind of like, ugh. So when you think about all the colours, how they perform, how do they blend? I mean, they do blend well because they're blending across each other, across shades, but I did have like 1 or 2 issues along the way. The shimmers are quite nice. I mean, you have to know how to work with them, but once you know how to work with them, they're pretty good. But yeah, just too big, too bulky, needed to be edited down. For me, it's a 6.5 out of 10, which I think is actually pretty good, but it could have been so much higher if they had taken those things into account. But anyways, my friends, that is it. That is the end of the video. Do please like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell, simply because it's polite and somebody, not me, has to be polite. And do please share, because sharing is caring, except of course for STDs. You just gotta wrap it up. But that is it. That is the end of the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.